What is going on, my YouTube gamers out there? Hopefully everybody's doing fantastic. Everybody is enjoying this wonderful, beautiful simulation we call life. Just look at that beautiful sun projection that we get every single day without skipping a beat. To be brutally honest with you guys, if this is a simulation, what an absolute disappointment. This avatar or this character just isn't going to cut it. Somebody please pass me some cheat codes to this virtual reality. Anyways, enough of that unrealistic nonsense. I mean, we're still going to talk about nonsense, but stuff that happens in every day-to-day life. We're going to be kind of touching a little bit more on this subject regarding this GTA hacker. I'm sure everybody and their grandmother has heard of it, whether you saw a little snippet of it on news or whether a friend told you, or maybe you just read an article while taking a deuce in between wipes. Let's be brutally honest, America doesn't read articles. That was an absolute joke. But however you might have heard from it, social media probably is the main source of information nowadays. I'll give you guys a quick little recap on what has happened up to this point. As I mentioned prior, this is really fascinating, really interesting to me. And every time I think the story is going to start to normalize, we get some other little bit of news that just makes you scratch your head. Now, this really began maybe about a couple of weeks ago. There was a plethora of different news outlets and even sources on social media that were showcasing a lot of footage from this unreleased GTA 6 project from Rockstar, and people absolutely lost their mind. There were people on both sides of the camp. There were people that got really excited about it, and there were others, small-minded individuals that just happened to be in a bad mood and their brains just couldn't quite compute the ones and the zeros that were showing up on their screen. The matrix just couldn't quite be comprehended or understood by these people, so they started bashing it. They started criticizing it. Even though it was an incomplete video game, it still hadn't been fleshed out. There were still a lot of issues that they needed to address, obviously. However, within a few days, there was a lot of information floating around that this individual had already hacked Uber and then had actually held a lot of information hostage, and he was actually asking for ransom money, which was really interesting because later there were conflicting reports saying that this probably wasn't the same individual and there were people getting scammed out there. There were people that were looking for the code to GTA 6. Absolutely fascinating stuff was happening, but all of this came to a big halt when the FBI, and I believe it was the UK cyber unit or cyber criminal division, something along those lines, these two organizations decided to drop everything that they were doing and make this priority number one. This kid, 17-year-old kid, finally got arrested and he's now facing charges. He's actually gone to court. He's pleaded not guilty to a couple of charges. I believe it's and this was upon doing a very extensive research. And what I mean by extensive research, I mean a couple of minutes that I Googled it while I was eating a burrito during lunch. But basically he got charged with this. I didn't even know this existed, but it's a couple of charges of computer misuse, and I believe there was something else that had to do with some bail conditions that he broke. I'm assuming that he, because he participated in some sort of illegal activity, he was in violation of some sort of bail circumstance. But this, obviously, like I said, it started to get way more interesting once the FBI got involved. The fact that they decided to prioritize this kid over all other cases, and they seemed to catch him pretty quickly. I mean, if they only spend these amount of resources trying to, nab psychotic killers out there, maybe the crime rate wouldn't be so high. But this was just fascinating, and it got even more fascinating with these charges. As I said, I spent probably a couple of minutes just doing a little bit of research on what type of jail time this individual would be facing. Now, he is underage. We don't really know any other information aside from what's been printed so far. So, obviously his identity is going to be protected as much as possible because of this. But he is, as far as I know, he was held at a juvenile detention center. So whether he's going to serve it there or eventually move on to an adult prison, this is assuming that he actually gets convicted of this. Unless he has Saul Goodman on his side, I could easily see all of these charges being dropped very easily. But from what I understand, both of these charges combined, I think because there are two separate charges, it could go up to 10 years, because I think each conviction of this would carry, each conviction of, computer misuse, those charges could carry up to 5 years each. So you'd be looking at about 10 years put together. That's on top of whatever, him violating his, bail condition, or being out on bail and violating whatever conditions he had agreed to. All of that seems that he would be, at least over 10 years, on top of like some $5,000 fines. Again, that's assuming that he gets charged with both counts. It would be $5,000 for each of those charges. And again, that's the most that he could get in terms of those charges. I mean, they could, cut him some slack. I've said it before, a little slap on the wrist. I don't see that you should make an example out of this kid. I mean, this isn't the first time that we've heard of people hacking into, big giant servers or big giant companies. And, it seems like those other individuals or those other groups or entities haven't really faced those type of harsh consequences. So I don't think they should start doing it with this kid. He's only 17 years of age. And it does seem like this isn't the first time that he's done this. His father, I think, went out publicly once, and he said that, he'd had a plethora of issues with this kid. So I can only imagine how difficult it must be for him. And, considering I am a father, so I could probably just honestly end up smashing a keyboard on his head just to try to get him to change his ways. But obviously, like I mentioned, this is a really big video game developing studio, and there should be consequences for him. There were definitely people that might have lost their jobs. There might have been a lot of financial ramifications, and I do definitely feel like he should be held accountable. But like I said, that is just kind of a little update for you guys. This kid is now in some juvenile detention center somewhere. He's being held for these two different counts, which, like I said, he could serve up to 10 years for each, 5 years for each of these charges. And if he's held accountable or he's found guilty for both, he could easily be doing over 10 years. Like I said, I don't think that will be the case, but as I mentioned, this has just been really fascinating to me, has really captivated my attention. Let me know in the comment section, what do you guys think? What are your thoughts on this story? Are you guys as fascinated as me? Like I said, I'm hoping this is the last time that we have to talk about this kid. It seems like the news cycle has already moved on. His 15 minutes of fame are up. So as I mentioned, hopefully this is the final moment. This is the final time that I have to talk about this kid. But let me know in the comment section what you guys think. And as always, guys, stay safe out there. I will see you guys in the next one.